Chairman. Dr. Sanborn, I'll start with you since we talked a little bit about the internet in the last round of questionings, and you brought up a website that advertises some of these services. Would shutting down those sites make a difference, or would they just pop back up internationally where we couldn't get to them? And how do we do it without casting an overbroad net that would violate the First Amendment?
I think that's a great question, but please don't ever put me on a panel with Cheryl and Kathy again. I'm not used to being a sidekick. So, now, the internet, it's a very tricky question, isn't it? Because most of the business has moved to the internet, but there are a lot of people that are hiding behind the First Amendment. And I'm a big believer in the First Amendment, and we have lots of lawyers on our staff that would say we're all behind the First Amendment. And you're right, if we decided today to shut down Backpage.com, there would be others that people would move to. But the fact of the matter is we need to just keep shutting them down. When Craigslist was pressured into being shut down, what we found is that some of these purchasers were lost for a little while until they found Backpage.com. There's no way that Backpage.com is going to do the same thing that Craigslist did, which is to shut down on its own, because it's making way too much money. It's owned by the Village Voice, and it's making a lot of money. They recently separated from the Village Voice, but they were making a lot of money. But I think...
Let me go on and talk a little bit. I asked our law enforcement folks on the last panel, why don't you just go on this website and go into each and every one of those organizations and rescue the victims? And he said, well, it was a matter of setting priorities. And I fell into that trap with him. I said, yeah, well, I guess going after murderers is a priority. Then I got to think, beyond murder or plotting terrorism, holding young children in basic slavery, I can't think of a higher priority. But I fell into that trap. And you've heard, I heard for years from folks, prostitution is a victimless crime. How many of the, Ms. Briggs, you were there. How many are there because they want to be there? Are there any?
No. I have never in my life met one woman who, if you offered her, or child, that if you offered them a viable second option, who would continue to do what they're having to do for survival.
And all right, we talked a little bit about the customers here and what we could do about the customers. Let me ask you, do the customers even know that the person that they're hiring may be, I'm using air quotes for hiring, is there involuntarily? Do they know whether or not they're a 14-year-old?
Yes, and they don't care.
They don't care.
So you think the going after the demand, as Judge Poe said, would make a huge difference.
Right, because if you cut down the amount of people out there buying sex, then a pimp that has 7 girls, if he can only sell 5 of those on a daily basis, he's going to let 2 go. So that's the deal. Supply and demand. Supply and demand. It works. It's international.
So how do we convince the law enforcement community that this needs to be a higher priority? There are things we can do in Congress. We can rewrite the laws to broaden some of the definitions that we've talked about. We can change some of the language with visas that we've talked about. But when it comes down to it, it's up to the law enforcement folks on the street to make that a priority. What do we do besides have hearings like this, talk to the television cameras? Are we doing everything we can do? And we'll let Ms. Griffin Townsend answer that.
The first piece is to get a room full of survivors, there are many, and put us all in front of law enforcement and look at what the real faces of this travesty actually look like. Stop being ashamed. Stop being embarrassed, because, how many get to live 2 lifetimes in 1 lifetime? All of us have, and we can pass that on and let them know that. And then everybody's got something that they want to keep secret that they don't want God to know, but He already knows. You can keep yours, hell, but we need to bring it out and show them the different real bases of it so they'll know what to go after. Because everybody's keeping it in a little box. This thing is bigger than a box. There is no such thing as a box when it comes to this sexual slavery.
Well, hopefully this hearing will take a step towards that. There were a lot of cameras here earlier. Hopefully the coverage that we get tonight from this will be one step in making a difference in people's lives. And I applaud what you're doing, helping folks one person at a time. And again, I applaud you, and God bless you.
Thank you.